We decided to look at the history of the LGBT community here in Barnsley because we felt it was important that we looked at the history of where we came from. Barnsley's always been considered a bit of a backwater when it comes to LGBT history and LGBT rights. And so some of the stories that came up were really interesting and quite surprising about the ramifications that it had for the wider community, not just for the couple of people that were involved in that particular story.
Leeds Mercury, 31st of March 1832. George Bennett, 46, and George Webster, 21, are charged with conspiring together for the purpose of committing an unnatural crime at Barnsley on the 25th of September 1831. Bennett and Webster are taken to York Castle Prison and held for almost 6 months until their trial in March 1832. They were charged with a capital offence and both faced the death sentence.
Well, I'm not surprised that it does occur in sort of predominantly male environments. That's not a surprise at all, you know, from what I've heard in my lifetime about what goes on in the pit baths and such like. So it's not really a surprise that way. One of the biggest surprises, going back in time, is that there was actually a death sentence for it, which seems absolutely extraordinary these days. The ones I've come across admittedly have been commuted to transportation for life or something like that, or 15 years or whatever, but it's incredible to think how attitudes have changed.
The evidence put forward by the prosecution was confused and conflicting, and the case was dismissed by the jury. The Vagrancy Act was used to target various sections of society, including the homeless and prostitutes. On this occasion, it was used against 2 men for being in enclosed premises for an unlawful purpose. William Brooke, 45, and Joshua Jowett, 18, were both minors at Warncliffe Silkston Colliery and lived on the same street together in Pilly. Brooke was originally from Emley near Wakefield and was married. Jowett was born in Worsborough and came from a large coal mining family. He married later in life and started a family. Detail on their arrest is sparse. The press were generally reluctant to report the details of incidents of sexual activity between men. The terms unnatural crime or offence are often used, but can also refer to many other crimes.
I always saw the mining community as a sort of very much male-dominated, macho kind of industry, and it never actually occurred to me until I saw some of the records that sort of went, oh dear, maybe things didn't quite happen as they were supposed to happen in the mining industry, and maybe those prejudices still hold true, but I don't think these days that they do by any standard. I think things have come on a great deal.
Whether Brooke and Jowett were caught by chance or it was a targeted arrest is unclear. They both pleaded guilty and were committed to 3 months at Wakefield Prison. At the time, Wakefield housed over 1,000 men and 200 women and was notorious as one of the largest and worst prisons in the country.
Looking at the sort of attitudes that went along with it, and how that's changed over time as well, and I think, I don't know, it's some of the LGBT culture and community has come from that sort of underground lifestyle, if you like, and having to hide it because it was against the law.
After both men were released, Jowett returned to his family in Pilly and his job at Warncliffe Silkston Colliery, but Brooke moved away from the area with his wife. He appears again on the 1871 census at Swillington near Leeds, still working as a coal miner. Train stations, public toilets and pubs have always been popular gay meeting places, and Barnsley was no different.
I mean, one of the most common meeting places for men were the old public toilets at the bottom of Churchfields where the police station was, that everybody going on and off the beats walked past several times a day.
One pub in particular, the Windmill Inn on Shambles Street, had a bad reputation in the late Victorian period. In 1903, 2 miners from Worsborough, John Clark and Thomas Fox, were both caught exposing themselves in the yard behind the pub. In 1954, the Barnsley establishment was shocked by a case involving 14 men from across the borough. miners, bank clerks, glass bottle makers and railway policemen were all brought to trial in Leeds. The men had been charged with various homosexual offences, based from incidents across the town in the bus station and the pubs of Barnsley. The testimony of one of the defendants was described in court as the most shocking document many of the policemen had ever seen. All the men were found guilty and given small custodial sentences and fines, except for one man who was made an example of by the courts. He was described as a great danger to others who may be tempted to go astray. The case is unique, not just in Barnsley but nationally. It reveals a large underground homosexual scene in post-war Britain, a scene rarely uncovered.